Welcome to Silver Fox Studios. My name is Graham Flatt. I'm known as the Monty Python of watercolor. Today in this video what we're going to tackle is a remake of a painting that I had done many years ago. It was called Heading Out. And we're going to try it for a slightly different version. Now this is not something that I normally do. I don't usually go back and revisit a specific composition. And this time though there was a request to understand that process that I had created, that first one, so I want to honor that by doing this one here for you today. It will be different, the colors will be different, I'm in a different place, different energy, but the composition will be virtually identical. We're going to change up the figures a little bit, and again it will be derivative of that first one, but it won't be, it's going to be a little bit moodier, I think. And while I'm on that, a couple of things. When we think of watercolor, we think of that wonderfully crisp white, that sparkling white, the radiant glow of transparent watercolor, and all those really rich jewel tones. I'm not that guy. I'm I'm at the exact opposite end of the watercolor spectrum from that. There are terms that we use called colorists, people that understand and use color a great deal. There are tonalists. That word gets used mostly in the oil painting industry. I'm coining right here, right now, a new term that I call muddist. And in the watercolor world, we always told, oh no, you can't use mud, you don't want to mix mud, mud is no good, mud is bad. But what's the opposite of transparency? That's opacity. What's the opposite of, if something is really pretty, you need something very drab. So I work on the muted, opaque end of watercolor, and my paintings I try for a very sort of earthy, muted feel, because those are just the colors that I gravitate towards. I'm predominantly a blue-brown painter, and my blues would be ultramarine blue and an indigo, and my browns would be burnt sienna and sepia. I use a healthy sprinkling of yellow ochre and the odd other color now and again, but for the most part those 5 colors constitute the vast bulk of my palette. So I stay towards the darker, drearier end, if you like. So that's just the exact opposite of what we understand with watercolor. When I throw in a little bit of acrylic gesso or a Chinese white, people say, wow, you're no longer a watercolorist, you're a water media artist, or you're a mixed media artist. And I mean, that's fine. I mean, if that's where you want to go, then go ahead. As far as I'm concerned, it's still watercolor. It's water soluble, it's watercolor on paper under glass, and that's how I label it, and I'm okay with that. So, we all need to find our way through this and give ourselves the permission to paint the way that we want. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention, just in terms of how I view the medium, how I view my painting process. So if you're still okay with that, we'll see you in a few minutes. I'm just going to head over to the workshop table there, and we'll start walking you through the process step by step. I try to allow you to get inside my head so you can understand my decision-making process. You can understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, what I see when I look at a picture, what areas concern me, what areas do I need to look at, do I need to be aware of. So that's kind of the way I teach in my workshops. That's the way it is in my world. I'm no different on this camera than I am in my studio or in front of a classroom. So like I said, if that works for you, we'll see you over at the table. We'll take it from there. Talk to you soon. Okay, so we're at the table here now. 140-pound Arches Bright White cold press. Notice my paper is not taped down. I've done a very brief sketch, my 4 ticks at the center points up into here, make sure nothing is interesting coming or going. A little bit. Start with my spray bottle. Just going to wet the top part of the paper. We're going to go through this really quickly. I haven't, depending on how it goes, we might even speed this up because there's not a lot of information that's going to be happening here that I want to pass on to you. So starting in with a mixture of a faience blue, again, Mammary colors only, little ultramarine. It's going to leave a little bit of a white space up into here. Don't mind some of those white areas. I want to ugly that up a little bit. That's my term. So I'm going to take a sepia, a blacky brown. I'm going to dance this down in on the bottom here. Some of these whites I kind of like, and I might just be inclined to leave them. Again, sepia and my faience blue. We'll carefully apply some water there, right? Because we all know that in watercolor, if you don't get it right the first time, you're gonna, you can't fix it, heaven forbid. Jumping down, same combination. I'm going to take some of that blue, but I'm going to add some straight up yellow ochre here, fairly heavy mixture. Paper is dry at this point because what I want to do is I want to control this top edge of my paper here, of those shapes. And I'm going to pluck in here and start negatively painting some of these background shapes. Add a bit more brown, yellow ochre. Come back into here again. Dry paper, safest, easiest way. So wet on dry technique, cutting in around these buildings into here so I have a nice clean shape. And again, this is just the blocking in stage. I'm not too concerned with much of anything right at this point, although I am keeping a very, very close eye on this white shape up into here. A little bit more of a blue mixture into here. Throws it into sort of a muddy neutral green. Remember, opening volley here, the term that I have assigned myself is that of a muddist. So I'm not looking for pretty here. I'm looking for mood. I'm looking for atmosphere. I'm looking for value in terms of light versus dark up into here. So my choice of colors are never really all that attractive in from a color perspective. And I just want to kind of just rough that shape up into here. Don't know what that white line's supposed to be. Really don't care. Here's the fun part. I'm standing up here, if you don't realize that. And when we come into this stage of the painting of the foreground, I believe it's absolutely critical that you stand up if you're going to do this, because otherwise you're just going to hit yourself with your brush. I've seen people lean over in their chair and, bend over if their back or if their knees aren't such that they can stand up there. Just going to spray that off. So this is the laying in of the foreground here. Remarkably simple, because all we're doing is we're just taking a bunch of brush and a bunch of paint up into here. The mistake a lot of people make is to confuse simple with easy. This is a very simple technique, and I guess in one respect it is easy because it doesn't require necessarily a lot of skill. I mean, anybody can take a brush and swing it and flick it down there. But where it becomes interesting is that ability to react to the shapes that you see developing. We've got some spatter up into here, so I think we'll just kind of repeat that background color in there a little bit. So at this point, I really don't care about any of this splashing. I'm not stressed out that it didn't go well, but what I am going to start doing now is looking not so much at the splashes, but at the whites that I'm leaving behind, because I want an interesting pattern into here. And I don't want to have to get into the habit of constantly replacing whites because I wasn't paying attention. Despite the fact that I use an opaque white, I do hold and I do have a lot of respect for the white paper. I'm going to come in with that same, what's this called? Mud. Let's just call it for what it is. It's mud, right? It's opaque, it's dark, it's neutralized, it's not pretty. And I'm just going to take a old beat up brush here. This is the brush that I refer to as my tulip brush. And I'm just going to spatter some paint into here. Just going to try and create some of those blossoms, some of those little backgrounds into here that could be interpreted as foliage. So I'm going to move really quite quickly through here. And don't let that little spot back up into there. Could be a little dark, a little Payne's Gray. Grab some Payne's Gray. Not a color that I gravitate to a lot, but it's a little blacker. Again, at this point, I am still on strictly on the transparent side of things. Just going to try and pluck that off of there. Don't mind this too much. Again, looking at that, and I can always adjust these whites. Right, I can get rid of them if I have to. While I'm at it, I'm going to quickly, while this is drying and soaking up some paper, or pardon me, some water, I'm going to very quickly come in here with Permanent Rose, Burnt Sienna, and some Sepia, and I'm going to just very, very quickly block this in. I'm going to move through these stages very, very fast for you. So, paper is dry on the inside here. You can see nice white crisp lines, which are going to be critical to establish that roof line. Come up under here, and we'll knock that shape up into there. And while we're at it, we'll just kind of take that guy into the background. Want to come in underneath my roof here very, very quickly while it's still wet, and drop in some darker tones again. And that will crisp up the whites. Vertical strokes to suggest barn boards. And I'm going to come in here with a little bit of the side of my brush, and I want to try to create a little bit of variation in that. Paying attention mostly to the shine on the paper. As your paper is shiny, that means it's still quite wet, water is sitting on the surface, and you want to be careful if you choose any kind of scraping technique into here, which you're going to get into pretty darn quick. There we go, that's a bit better. Okay, nice. Alright, and I'm just going to come back in here again with my spray bottle. I always feel that the spray bottle is one of the most underrated tools because it can create wonderful texture and foliage into here. Big sheet of glass underneath my paper helps keep it stable. Non-absorbent surface that I like to keep freakishly clean so that no water comes back in on top of that. This is a little much speckling for my taste right at this moment, but I know that a lot of that's going to disappear. Talk a little bit about scraping. Ordinary palette knife. Pop that up in there so you can see. There we go. This is an oil painting palette knife. Nothing special about that. Nice metal blade. It's been dulled down a little bit so it won't scratch the paper. But I'm going to come into here and I'm going to start scraping in some trees here while it's still relatively damp. They are now a permanent fixture. So despite the fact that there's a random aspect to this, I am being somewhat careful in placing them, looking for the rhythm in between. Don't want to get them all spaced out the same distance, don't want them to make them all the same height, same value. I want some to come down a little farther. These trees now are closer to the viewer. Why? Because they are closer down to the bottom. Not happy here. I want something. There we go. That's a bit better. Let's take one here. I like that. See how that shape just pushed those buildings right back? Alright, so there's the backdrop, there's the buildings being blocked in very, very quickly. Just going to take a bigger brush here and I'm just going to try and pull some of this down. Maybe we'll add, but at that point there's our backdrop in, quick, dirty, ultramarine blue a little bit in the sky with some faience. permanent rose, some yellow ochre, sepia into here, yellow ochre, sepia, and again that faience repeated down up into here. So when we look at this, really we have shades of all three colors coming all the way through, so we've created a sense of harmony. Nice big building in here to ground it, give it scale, give it dimension. Looking up on the monitor I'm seeing, we'll let that dry and then we'll come back and we'll take it to the next stage, which should be probably adding a few tweaks of white, cleaning up the roof line, and we'll make some snow. See you soon.